The drawing that I'm creating now is based on a collection of photos, videos, and animations and musical composition that I entitle Symbiosis. Mixed media assemblages and digital montages from the series were exhibited last year in Worcester and will be exhibited again in September 2024 and May of 2025 to a live musical performance of my original compositions. These will include a series of drawings from photo montages, including this one. A dandelion, a view of a barren forest. Both demonstrate natural elements as opposed to the mechanical objects of a door lock, the inside of a baby grand piano with the keys striking the strings, and the inside of an old-fashioned typewriter. Figurative elements include my hand touching the pond while my iPhone was on slow motion to capture the effect of the ripples, and some background textures including an ink splotch that incorporated table salt to get this kind of texture, and a close-up of the water at one of the sandbars at Narragansett Beach. I developed 2 photo montages from these sources, and again decided to use a second one for my final master drawing. So as you can see, I switched out the original hand for a new photo of my hand showing a bit more flesh and bone and a more dramatic position to create the ripples in the pond. I really want to give some prime attention to this hand as I gradually build it up with pencil. So I'm going to start out with a 2B, move up to a 5B, and then to a 7B. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for shapes that have different values. In here, I have a dark shape that is something like this. And again, I'm going to start out very light and just map in that shape. Some of the shapes are shadows. Some of the shapes are actual forms. I have a tendon right over here, probably from being on the computer and drawing too many years, getting some real tendonitis, haha. I don't want to rely on outlines as much as I want to rely on shading to define the edges of things. And I'm also, if you notice my pencil strokes, I'm shading in the direction of a muscle or a bone or a tendon, not just flat going any haphazard way. I want to try to get those directional lines out of my shading. And I want some of those pencil lines to come through later on because they help bring volume to the form. Again, remember directional and cross-contour drawings that we did last term. If I have an outline, it's going to be very faint, just so I know where things are, because later on, there will be a background behind these, and that will bring out the light tonality of my hand. Notice that my shading isn't complete shading. Again, you can still see the line work. Now, if I wanted to go in with my smudge stick and blend some areas, that's fine, but again, I don't want to overdo it. I want to get a good combination of smooth tonality, and I still want those pencil lines. And at this point, when I get enough tone on here, I can start even going in with my eraser and start pulling out some of the highlights. I can start looking for those kinds of shapes as well. Light shapes, light tonalities. And we put down some, I call it dry wash, but it's just basically smudge stick. There's a light shape that goes something like this. I'm going to kind of carve out with my eraser. But again, like pencil line, I'm going in the direction of my form. I'm going to go outside and basically sharpen my plastic eraser on some asphalt so I have a nice, clean, fine edge. So watch this application of tone here. Before I apply it, I'm actually drawing a few directional lines to indicate the direction that I'm going to shade as it sort of defines this plane of the hand, using these lines as guides, as well as some contour line. I like to make things darker where you have more bony material. So now I'm getting closer to the point where I want to leave it alone and mask it. I may go over later on with some light washes, but I may do a tiny bit more detail, apply the masking fluid. While this mask is drying, I think I'm going to change the course a little bit and work on some of the piano keys and the strings, because they have some very delicate values that would be best carried out with 2B or maybe 4B pencil. Let's get a little tone behind here. Maybe with a 5B or a 7B. I'm really happy with this area as it is now. Before I move on, time to take a break and let the masking dry. At this point, I'm now going to have some fun with some ink wash. I am not even referencing the photo. Instead, I chose to work intuitively because I have an area that I can just basically play, and then I'll let dry, peel off the ink wash, and then see what happens from there. The first thing that I'll do is I'll go in with a large brush just to get some underlying washes. I'm not going to be too concerned what I do. Just brush away and see how the ink wash and water reacts with the paper. One thing that I should mention is the paper that I'm using is not the most expensive quality. And you can see what's happening as a result of the masking fluid and ink wash is that it's starting to buckle. I could have used more expensive watercolor substrate, but for now, this is okay. I go in and dab out a little bit of texture here and there with the paper towel, just to kind of get some nice abstract shapes. Again, I'm not referencing the photograph, I'm referencing the drawing. I'm reacting to what the medium does. At this point, I don't really need the photo anymore. And I'll just let that sit and dry and do its thing. Half of the battle is learning when to walk away. Before I apply the ink wash in my drawing, I want to do a little test. So I went out to Stop and Shop and I bought this container of sea salt, the kind that you grind, the coarse kind. I want to see how it reacts with the ink wash on just a piece of scrap paper. So I'm going to do two things. One, let's grind some. And we've got an area here. And I'll go in with some ink wash. And just kind of tap it down. I'm using a pretty wet solution with a good amount of ink already mixed into it. And let's see what that will yield. The second thing I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to put down the solution first, rather the wash first. I'm going to put it on pretty liberally. Then let's grind some salt into that. There we go. So I think that is the more effective solution. Let's let this dry and see how it looks in the morning. I'll grind a little bit more into the edges here. Bring out a little more texture. Good night. Time to get a good sleep. See you in the AM. Well, it looks like we had some good success here with the salt, and we've got some really beautiful surfaces that can only be created if you have an open mind, and if you're open to spontaneity and chance. So I can try to mimic this experience on my final drawing. I've also taken some time to do some more frettage work. My acoustic guitar strings, a cheese grater, the tabletop that I'm working on, a plastic food strainer, which is really kind of magnificent, the surface of my driveway, The cheese grater wins at number 1. Maybe number 2, there might be some way I can incorporate the plastic strainer. And now I'll spend a little time bringing out some of these forms, some of these structures with pencil and charcoal. And I'll then go in with some ink washes on the top of it and pray for the best, see what happens. I'll do this in the same manner that I use the salt. I'll start off with a fairly large brush. Loaded with mostly water and maybe 45% ink. I already have some good areas in here that I don't want to mess up, such as some of the pencil lines coming through. So I'm going to be careful not to overdo this. Just let it spread out and do its thing. Maybe have some here behind the hand to kind of illuminate. Let's salt it up.